Hello students, welcome to lecture number 6 of Computer Architecture course. The topic of today's lecture is multiplier hardware and MIPS ALU. What we are going to do today is learn about the multiplier algorithm, how it works inside MIPS, what is the equivalent hardware that is required to imitate that multiplier algorithm that we are talking about, and then we'll do an example to see how the hardware works and how many clock cycles it takes to effectively compute the output. We'll also have a look at the MIPS ALU, which is the core inside the processor for MIPS 32-bit. We'll see how it actually works and what are the control signals, and using a bit of a knowledge of digital logic we can easily design an MIPS ALU. Okay, so let us get started. So let us take a very simple example of how we usually do a multiplication, right, for an unsigned number. Let's imagine that the multiplicand is 1000 and multiplier is 1001. So we can easily compute a product manually on pen and paper by doing the manual operation, such as multiplying the first bit of the multiplier, which is LSB, with multiplicand to give 1000, and then we gradually get the other numbers, which is 0000, and then again for the next 0, which is 0000, and then 1000, and then we add up the numbers. We finally get a product which is 0100 and 1000. So the first operand is called the multiplicand and the second is called multiplier. Okay, and the final product and the final result is called a product. The first observation is that the number of digits in the product is considerably larger than the number in either the multiplicand or the multiplier. In fact, if we ignore the sign bits, the length of the multiplication of an n-bit multiplicand and an m-bit multiplier is a product which is n plus m bits long, right? That's why we have m bits times n bits equals to m plus n bit product. So if we restrict the decimal digits to be 0 and 1 with only two choices, we are left. That is, we just place a copy of the multiplicand, that is 1 times multiplicand, in a proper place if the multiplier digit is a 1, or the second choice is we place a 0, that is 0 into multiplicand, in a proper place if the digit is 0. We are talking of the multiplier digit here. So this is the usual working operation, and we will try to imitate this using an algorithm, and then we'll build a hardware for this. Now this version is called Booth's multiplier of multiplication and Booth's multiplier of the algorithm. So in this slide we have made a simple flowchart to demonstrate the process. We start and we test the LSB of the multiplier bit, which is multiplier 0. If it is a 0, if the LSB of the multiplier is a 0, then we shift the multiplicand register left 1 bit, followed by shifting the multiplier register right 1 bit. And if the multiplier LSB is a 1, then we add the multiplicand to the product and place the result in the product register. So we are making a condition box right at the top because we want to test the multiplier 0th bit, which is the LSB of the multiplier, and depending on that we decide what we want to do, whether we want to add the multiplicand to product and place a result into the product register, or we want to ignore that and simply directly move into shifting the multiplicand register left 1 bit followed by shifting the multiplier register right 1 bit. In both cases we also keep track of the total number of bits that have been repeated. So if we have a 32-bit repetition done already or 30-second repetition done, then we stop because we have been able to cover all the bits that needed to be. If not, then we again go back and restart the process by testing the next LSB. that means the next bit to be tested. So that's how this algorithm works basically. Okay, now let's do an example to see if you want to do step-by-step process of an example, how many steps do we need. So imagine we have a multiplier indicated by mul which has a specimen value of 0011, and let's imagine assuming that the multiplicand denoted by mcand has a value 00000010. The product register has been initialized to 00000000. Okay, since we are talking from the perspective of hardware, we need to talk in the language of registers because that's where we want to store the intermediate and the final values as well as the inputs, right? That's what the essence of having a register is, that we want to store the values. So it's basically a multiplier register, a multiplicand register, and a product register. So we'll also do a few more abbreviations. The first abbreviation is shift right, which is SHR, shift left, which is SHL, and then we have an NP which indicates no operation. So in the very first step, which is 1A, we have a bit value 1. So because of this bit value of the multiplier LSB being 1, we do P plus mcand and store it back to P, which is product register stores back the added value of the initialized product register plus the initial value of the mcand and puts it back into the product register again. So mul is 0011, mcand is 0000 and 0010, and the product now becomes 00000010, which is step number 1A that I'm talking about. Okay, because we have an LSB of the multiplier to be 1. In the next step, we shift left mcand, so the multiplier register retains the value which is 0011. mcand is now left shifted by 1 bit, so it becomes 00000100, and step number 2 that you see here, followed by the product register that retains the same value which is 00000010. I'm talking of step number 2 of the first phase. Now moving on to the third step, which is shift right mul, which is the multiplier register. We are shifting the value of the multiplier register by 1 bit to the right, so it becomes 0001 here, and the multiplicand retains the value. mcand has the same value as the previous step, which is 00000100, and the product is also retaining the same value because we are not doing any operation with the product register right now, so it is 00000010. So the first phase here is over. Okay, now let us move to the second phase. In second phase, step number 1A, again we have an LSB in the multiplier register indicated by a value 1. So we again apply the same algorithm, P equals to P plus mcand. So mul register has 0001, mcand has 00000100, same value as the previous step. But the product register now changes because now we are adding the value of mcand with the previous value of the product register. So this becomes 0000 and 0110 because we are adding the value here with the value here, and we get the value here. So in step number 1A of the second phase, the value of the product register is 400110. Now let us move to step number 2, which is shift left mcand. We again shift the mcand left by 1 bit, but first the mul register retains the old value, no change. mcand gets shifted by 1 bit. So you can see the value here in step 1a is now changed here. This is left shifted by 1 bit, and the product register retains the same value, so there is no change here. Moving to step number 3, which is shift right mul. So we will shift right the multiplier register indicated by an underline here. If you shift right this value 1 bit, so this becomes this, it becomes all zeros, so 0 0 0 0. mcand retains its older value, product also retains its older value, because we are not doing any operation in the product as well. So second phase is now over. We have the value of p equals to 400110. Now moving to the third phase. Here we see that the LSB of the multiplier is a 0. Now as per the algorithm flowchart, if it's a 0, there is a no operation. Since it's a no operation, we'll directly move to the next step. So this remains same, this remains same, this remains same. And in step number 2, we shift left mcand. By shifting left mcand, multiplier remains the same. mcand again you see has been shifted left by 1 bit, so this value here in the register changes to this value here, and p remains same because no operation on p in this step. In third step, shift right mul, we'll again shift right mul by 1 bit, so this 0 0 0 0 remains 0 0 0 0. There is no change that you could see here because of shifting. The mcand also remains the same value because we are not doing anything with mcand. P retains the same value, no operation on p. So till the third phase, you see bit number 1, 1 and 0, the three things have already been tested. Now we are only left with testing the last bit of the multiplier, which is this one here. Now that is again 0, so that means again no operation np. Multiplier remains same, mcand remains same, product remains same. Step number 2, shift left mcand. So mul remains same, mcand gets shifted by left 1 bit, so this value here changes to this value. Product remains same, no change in the product register. Now we move to step number 3, which is shift right mul. If you shift right mul, then this becomes this value, which is nothing but the same value because there is no change due to shifting. mcand retains the same value, product retains the same value. So all the 4 phases resulting from the 4 bits of the multiplier have all been tested, and the final product value is 400110. So this is the answer that you get after multiplying this multiplier with the mcand value. Okay, even if the mcand value had 0010, you would have still needed to append 4 bits to the left, right? Because we know that we need to shift the mcand left by 4 bits, so we need those extra 4 bits as padded values in the left. So therefore the mcand product register, mcand register is anyways 8 bit, and the result of multiplier and multiplicand being multiplied will anyways yield a 8 bit value, because it's 4 bit for multiplier and 4 bit for mcand, which is multiplicand. So the product will anyways 8 bit. So, and we also needed 4 bit to be left shifted due to the left shifting of mcand. So therefore 4 zeros have been appended on the left here, right? So you pretty much saw how this example works for this particular 4-bit multiplier number and a 4-bit multiplicand number. Now let us analyze how many clock cycle it takes. Assuming just for simplicity, we can say that every step consumes 1 clock cycle. Okay, so if you do that, then for every bit tested and every left shifting and every right shifting of the mul, we are consuming 3 clock cycles for every phase, and in total there are 4 such phases. So we can say roughly the estimated clock cycle is 12. We are consuming 12 clock cycles to finish this operation. Okay, and this 12 clock cycles is because of 4-bit multiplier, remember. Okay, now let us see how the hardware of this looks like. So we can call this as shift add multiplier, or we can just call this as Booth's multiplier hardware, whatever name is convenient, but they all mean the same thing. And you can see here that the multiplier hardware has a data path and a controller. The data path is this portion which I'm talking about, marked in orange and blue and green, and this colorless block of 64-bit ALU, and the yellowish block that you see here is the controller. Okay, so any hardware that we are talking about in MIPS must have a data path and a controller. Without any of it, it's not really a hardware in itself. So in this data path, what you see, we have a multiplicand. Since we want to build a 64-bit output, so we need 32-bit multiplier and a 32-bit multiplicand, and this 32-bit multiplicand is actually nothing but a 64-bit multiplicand, because we are adding 32-bit zeros on the left of the multiplicand register. That makes it up as 64-bit. So therefore multiplicand is 64-bit ALU. So one of the inputs is 64-bit multiplicand that goes into the 64-bit ALU. The result gets stored in a product register that is also 64-bit, and this output is again fed back into the second input of ALU, because we are intermediately adding the intermediate values of the product with the multiplicand, right? That's what we are doing in every step. And the multiplier keeps on shifting to the right. Okay, this is a 32-bit multiplier. This keeps on shifting to the right, and it tells the controller that whether the multiplier 0, that is the multiplier LSB, is a value 1 or a value 0. If it is a 0, then no operation, else it's a product equals to product plus multiplicand. So that is what it indicates to the controller, and controller is indicating that to the data path by writing the value in the product register, by enabling the 64-bit ALU when needed, by also left shifting the multiplicand. So this controller actually controls all the three blocks that we see here, and it also controls the right shifting of the multiplier. So one input goes to the controller, and one input goes from controller to the multiplier, right? So both way interaction is happening here. So we will call left shift signal enabling signal of the 64-bit ALU, right signal and right shift signal as control signals of this multiplier hardware. So it basically has 4 control signals: left shift, enable, right shift. Okay, so the control basically decides when to shift the multiplicand and multiplier registers and when to write new values into the product register. That's pretty much it in this. Okay, now let's move to MIPS 1-bit ALU. See, we know a little bit about ALU, okay, from the knowledge of logic design or digital logic system course. We already would have some idea what ALU is. It's basically responsible for performing arithmetic and logic operations. So that's what it stands for, ALU, arithmetic logic unit. So let us see what a 1-bit ALU looks like. We have an input AB. We have a control signal which is given by ALU operation here. We have a carry out. We have a 0 output which indicates whether the output is a 0 or not. So 0 flagging. We have a result, and we have an overflow in case we don't have the ability to store it within the given space. And this is a 4-bit. There's a 4-bit control signal given by A invert, B invert, and multiplex operations. We'll talk about it in the next slide. And it's responsible for performing 6 operations roughly: and, or, adding, subtracting, set on less than, and nor. So these are the 6 different operations depending on what the control signal value which is fed into the ALU. So the internal structure of a 1-bit ALU unit of MIPS is as follows. We have 3 switches. So these 3 switches are the multiplexers we are talking of. In the language of analog electronics, these could be called as switches, or in many industrial terminology and nomenclature, we can call this as switches, because it's able to switch between different outputs, and it's controlling the output value. So in the first switch we see we have a multiplexer where the input is A and the second is A invert. So that's why the 1 bit select line of the first switch is A invert. In the second switch we have B and B invert, therefore the select line is called as B invert. That is it is a B when the B invert value is a 0, and it's B complement when it's a 1. The third switch has a 2-bit signal. The operation is a 2-bit number because we are having 4 inputs, so we'll need 2-bit select lines. And as you could see that we are having an AND gate and an OR gate and a adder block, okay, that is being connected, and we also have a overflow detection unit. Now you can see that if you have A going into the AND and B going into the AND, it will perform a regular ANDing. Similarly for OR, it will perform A or B, and for adder block it will perform A plus B. But when it's a subtraction, then it will be A complement plus B complement plus the carry in, which is 1, that is going into the adder block, which indicates A minus B, okay, in 2's complement language. And finally we have another signal which is called less. Now I'll explain about this in the next slide more in details what this less exactly does. This is actually responsible for performing set on less than operation, which in MIPS is called as SLT. Okay, so therefore we have all these things acting as input, and finally we have an output which is called result. Okay, so in this slide we see 32-bit ALU unit with SLT feature for 32-bit MIPS processor. So let me first talk you through about what SLT does, if in case you are not aware of. SLTB is set on less than. That means it will set the output to 1, value 1, if the value of A is less than B. That is A minus B is less than 0. Else it will set the output value to all zeros if A is greater than equal to B, that is A minus B is greater than equal to 0. Right? We are speaking about 32-bit output for SLTB because we are doing 32-bit operation here. Okay, so that number that you see 000 dot 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 001, that's actually a 32-bit number. And again in the next line we have 000 dot 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 000. That means everything is 0 in a 32-bit number. So that means in the first case it will be 000 dot 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 001. That means it's a 1 if A is less than B. That is A minus B is less than 0. Okay, and the next step is else it will all be zeros if A is greater than or equal to B. That is A minus B is greater than equal to 0. So therefore in each 1-bit ALU there should be an additional input called less, that is providing the result for the SLT function, because we need that number that is generated at the output. So therefore we have an additional input. This input has a value 0 for all, okay, except the LSB of the ALU. I'll tell you why. See, the reason is in case of signed representation of negative numbers, if the number is a signed representation of negative numbers, then the MSB of the entire thing is actually representing the sign bit, right? So this bit is actually connected as SLT input for LSB of the ALU. So therefore you see that the MSB, which is actually representing the sign bit for this cascaded ALU structure, the MSB will be a 1 if it's A minus B less than 0, that is A is less than B. So this value will be a 1. The final MSB will be a value 1 in this set. Now this is being connected to the LSB. Why? Because we want the output to be a 1 in the LSB. That is why if it's a negative number, that means the MSB will be a 0 the MSB will be a 0 if it's a positive number. If it's a negative number, the MSB will be a 1. So the output of the ALU structure will be a 1 if it's a negative number, and since when it's a negative number, we want the less value to be fed as 1, because if this is 1, then automatically the result here will be 1, depending on the control signal that is chosen, okay, which is 0 1 1 1. When we have a control signal 0 1 1 1, we are actually doing SLT. That means A invert is 0, B invert is 1, and the operation is 1 1. So that's how this 32-bit ALU unit with SLT feature works. Okay, and we have a 32-bit input, as you could see, A0, B0, A1, B1, and every other input except the LSB has all values 0. That is exactly what I am saying here. Except the LSB of the ALU, all the values of the less input, less is the name, less input is all zeros. See, except the LSB, because in LSB we want that to be 1 or 0 depending on whether it's a negative or positive number. It will be a negative number if A is less than B, which is SLT equals to 1, and it will be a positive number if A minus B is greater than or equal to 0, right? So that's how we have this SLT feature being incorporated into the 32-bit ALU structure. And again, we also have a 32-bit output, and these are the operations that is being fed. So this is 2-bit signal, this is 1-bit signal, and this is also 1-bit signal. So A invert is 1 bit, B invert is 1 bit, and operation is 2-bit. So for SLT to be activated, we want a control signal as 0 1 0 0. Okay, that is A invert is 0, B invert is 1, and operation is 1 1. Okay, so that's how we'll make this 32-bit ALU unit with SLT feature work. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. I have already shown that we have a 32-bit cascaded structure starting from ALU 0, ALU 1, ALU 2, dot 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 till ALU 31. So it's a 32-bit structure. Okay, so that is pretty much it for today's lecture. We've learned about MIPS 32-bit ALU with SLT. We've learned what is the internal structure of 1-bit ALU. We've also learned about Booth's multiplication. We also learned about multiplication algorithm, how it works. We've also seen the multiplication hardware, what are the control signals, what is the portion inside the data path, what is there in the controller, and what is the job of the controller. So you've seen all of these things today, and so multiplier hardware and MIPS 32-bit ALU both have been covered. So today's lecture is over. In the next lecture, we'll again do more about the other computer architecture arithmetics, and we'll use examples to see how the other type of arithmetics work, and how do we handle floating point numbers, how do we handle normal integers, and so on. Thank you so much.